What really happened between Dylan Wang and Shen Yue? The truth everyone missed. Why did a single unresolved moment between Dylan Wang and Shen Yue quietly shift the energy of an entire drama set, ripple across their fan communities, and leave insiders whispering that something far more complicated, far more delicate, and far more human was happening behind the scenes than anyone had realized? This question grew louder with every passing month, because while the world focused on the obvious, the on-screen chemistry, the interviews, the staged smiles, something subtle, something unscripted, something not meant for the cameras at all, unfolded in the shadows between takes, and it would take years before anyone understood just how deep it ran. Hold on tight, C-Drama family. The world of your favorite celebrities is unfolding before your eyes, and every moment is more breathtaking than the last. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications right now, because trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next. Their story did not begin with fireworks or dramatic confessions. It began in silence, on the very first day of rehearsals for their drama, when the production crew gathered inside a dimly lit practice room. The air was thick with nerves, scripts rustled, assistants hurried around with headsets, and the director circled the space with the sharp eye of someone searching for magic before it existed. Shen Yue arrived quietly, soft-spoken as always, her hair tied loosely back, her expression calm but focused. She took her seat at the far end of the table, unaware that eyes had already begun observing her. Dylan entered minutes later, holding his script in one hand and a bottled drink in the other, his energy bright and unfiltered. He greeted the room casually, his voice carrying an effortless confidence that filled the space. Yet the instant his gaze fell on Shen Yue, quiet, composed, unaware, he paused, not dramatically, not theatrically, but with a split-second stillness that only a few sharp-eyed staff members noticed. It wasn't attraction, and it wasn't surprise, it was recognition, a sudden awareness that this girl, with her soft presence and sincere gaze, would become someone who shifted his rhythm in ways he wasn't prepared for. From the first table read, something unusual happened. While other cast members performed with professional distance, Dylan and Shen Yue fell into a kind of unforced synchronicity. Their lines overlapped with natural timing, their pauses matched, their emotional beats aligned so perfectly that the director stopped them twice, not to correct them, but to remark quietly to his assistant that the two of them somehow already felt like their characters before they had even stepped in front of a camera. As filming began, the entire atmosphere around them transformed. They developed a rapport built not on flirtation or public moments, but on small, deeply human interactions that rarely crossed the lens. Between takes, Shen Yue would sit near the monitors, legs tucked under her, quietly studying the next scene. Dylan, who normally preferred high-energy banter and movement, found himself drawn to the calm around her, sitting close enough to talk but not close enough to draw attention. They shared snacks, exchanged notes, and occasionally laughed about small mistakes that only the two of them noticed. Crew members whispered about it, not in a sensational way, but with the quiet curiosity of observers who sensed something unusual unfolding. They noticed how Dylan would lower his voice whenever speaking to her, how Shen Yue relaxed in his presence in a way she didn't with others, how their body language mirrored each other unconsciously, an arm crossed here, a tilt of the head there, a shared glance that needed no explanation. But the truth of what happened between them wasn't defined by sweetness. It was defined by the moment everything shifted. It happened midway through filming, during a late-night shoot in an outdoor courtyard. The scene required emotional intensity, not romantic tension, but a confrontation, a vulnerable exchange between characters who had reached a breaking point. Shen Yue struggled with the scene at first, unable to tap into the rawness the director wanted. She apologized repeatedly, her voice tinged with frustration, her shoulders tight with pressure. Dylan watched her, concern deepening with each attempt. After the fourth retake, he approached her quietly, pulling her aside to a small corner of the courtyard where lantern lights flickered softly in the breeze. No cameras followed, no assistants intruded. Just the two of them in the hollow calm of the night. He asked her what was wrong, not as a scene partner, but as someone who genuinely saw her. At first, she refused to answer, insisting she was fine, that she just needed more practice. But Dylan, who had grown adept at reading her silences, gently pressed. And finally, Shen Yue admitted that she felt overwhelmed, that the expectations placed on her were growing heavier, that she feared disappointing the people who believed in her, that she sometimes felt invisible despite being constantly watched. Dylan didn't respond immediately. He simply listened, really listened, letting her speak without interruption. When she finished, he said something that would stay with her long after the drama wrapped. He told her that she didn't need to prove anything to anyone, because her sincerity, her quiet strength, was the reason audiences connected with her. He reminded her that she had earned her place, not through noise, but through authenticity. And then, gently, almost imperceptibly, he placed his hand on her shoulder, not in comfort, but in reassurance, a grounding gesture that pulled her out of her own doubts. That moment changed everything. When they returned to the set, Shen Yue delivered the strongest performance of the night. The director called cut with a stunned expression, murmuring that he hadn't expected the scene to reach such depth. The crew exchanged glances. Something unspoken had shifted between the leads. From that night onward, their dynamic carried a new tension, subtle, intertwined with care, real in a way that could not be easily categorized. It wasn't romance, at least not in the dramatic, explosive form fans loved to imagine. It wasn't friendship either, because friendships don't normally carry that level of unguarded vulnerability. What they shared lived in the gray space between two people who understood each other too deeply, too quickly, without any roadmap for what to do with that understanding. The truth everyone missed wasn't found in the fan edits or the behind-the-scenes clips. It was found in the things the cameras never caught, the quiet conversations in shadowed corners, the comfort of shared silence, the moments when one noticed the other struggling before anyone else did. It was found in the emotional tether that formed slowly, quietly, almost accidentally, binding them in a way neither talked about publicly but both felt privately. And the most surprising part? Their story didn't end when filming wrapped. It shifted. And what happened next, far away from the lights, the scripts, and the noise of the set, is the part no one has ever heard. What happened next, the moment everyone missed, the moment buried beneath fan theories, paparazzi angles, and promotional schedules, unfolded far away from the stage lights and interviews, in a quiet, unguarded space where their public personas melted away and only their human reality remained. Because after months of swirling rumors, cryptic social media posts, charged on-screen chemistry, and awkward press answers that only deepened suspicion, the truth did not reveal itself at a glamorous event or a red carpet encounter, but inside a small, dimly lit room tucked behind a studio hallway, where Dylan Wang and Shen Yue finally spoke honestly, without cameras, without managers, without scripts, and without the invisible pressure of millions of eyes waiting to interpret their every breath. The moment began with silence, not the cold, heavy kind, but the kind that comes from two people who have spent a long time carrying something unsaid, something carefully held back, something that had been disguised beneath work schedules and professionalism. Shen Yue stood near a low table stacked with scripts, her posture tense but her expression soft, as if she were bracing for something she had known was inevitable. Dylan stood across from her, hands buried in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched, a look of uncharacteristic vulnerability flickering behind his usual confidence. It was the first time in months they had been in the same room without assistants hovering, without stylists adjusting their wardrobes, without a countdown to an interview. Just them. And the truth. The studio outside buzzed faintly, distant footsteps, the low hum of equipment, someone laughing far down the hall, but inside this room, the world felt suspended. Dylan took a slow breath, the kind you take before stepping into water that might be too deep, and finally spoke her name, not with the playful tone fans loved, not with the teasing smirk he reserved for interviews, but with a softness that made Shen Yue look up instantly. She knew immediately that whatever he was about to say would not be simple, would not be light, and would not be rehearsed. He began with an apology, not because something terrible had happened, but because for months he had been unable to acknowledge publicly what had been quietly unfolding between them, something real yet fragile, something felt but never labeled, something caught between personal truth and professional boundaries. He admitted that he had been afraid of fan reactions, afraid of gossip columns twisting their every move, afraid of losing the easy friendship that had been the foundation of their connection since their earliest days on set. He confessed that every time he tried to speak honestly, their schedules would split, their managers would intervene, or another project would rise between them like an unbreakable wall. Shen Yue listened silently, her eyes steady, absorbing every word. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a mixture of relief and lingering ache, because she too had been carrying the weight of unanswered questions, unsure whether the moments between them, those off-camera glances that felt almost too real, the quiet conversations between takes, the instinctive way they always found each other in crowded rooms, were simply fleeting or meant something more. She confessed that she had tried to distance herself at times, not because she wanted to, but because she feared being the one who complicated his rising fame, who drew scrutiny to his personal life, who made things harder when the industry was already demanding enough from both of them.